What are your crimes, Mark? Yes, what are your crimes, Mark? Did you beat your wife? Did you kick a pup? Well, find your crimes or make it up. Did you laugh at Hubbard? That's not nice, and now you'll have to pay your bride. So what are your crimes, Mark? What have you done? Oh, it's too late now. Fair game's begun.
Crimes, there are no crimes around here. This is a crime-free zone. I'm Mark Bunker. This is Zenutv. This is the intergalactic headquarters of our broadcasting empire, and I'm very pleased to have with us tonight Brooks Gibbs. Welcome to you.
Thank you, man. So good to be on your incredibly entertaining podcast. Yeah.
Thanks. The first time I was aware of you was when you popped up at a Clearwater City Council meeting. And you did something remarkable, which I'm sure everybody in my audience is already aware of. You know, you stepped up and presented this alternate proposal for the use of Garden Street. And we'll go into all of that. But I just wanted to let folks know out there who aren't familiar with you that you are a pretty incredible guy, very successful public speaker, motivator. You especially work with kids in school, dealing with bullying largely. And I watched some of your videos. They're very impressive.
Thank you.
You do a great job of relating to the kids and amusing them. You're very funny. And that's the best way to get a message across.
Yeah, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
And how long have you been doing that?
Well, my very first school assembly with a whole group of kids, I was 19 years old. And I ended up marrying the girl that booked it. Her name's Jill, and she's booked over 3,000 events ever since. We've been married now 25 years. So that's how long I've been doing it.
Wow. Wow. And I saw the video that you made about Jill. And it's lovely.
Thank you.
It had me in tears. And I'm a very emotional person. I would play that, but I can't take it again. But I recommend anyone go to Brooks' website.
Yeah, and just Google Brooks Gibbs. I love this girl.
Yes.
And you know, she was a gymnast her whole childhood. And when she was 15 years old, she was doing a double backflip and she got a bad bounce and she broke her neck, C4 and 5, in the vertebrae, and it left her quadriplegic from the neck down. You know, I asked her tonight, we were with a group of friends, and I said, did you ever blame God or anything like that? Did you ever say like, well, if there's, you know, why did this happen? She says, it never once entered my mind. I just accepted it. And the first time I met her, I thought two things. Number one, I think this is my wife, right? I actually had love at first sight. And then I thought, man, it's so sad that a pretty girl's in a wheelchair. I had a lot of compassion. And I said, well, I'm so sorry you're in a wheelchair. She's like, hey, it's all right. I have a friend who has my same injury, C4 and 5. Her name's Johnny Erickson Tata. And her disability is way worse than mine. You know, she compared her sad situation against the backdrop of someone who had it worse. And that was a real coping technique for her. And then I said, well, you know, is this for, you know, forever? She says, well, forever is a long time. I said, well, I mean, do they have a cure for this? Or are you forever in a wheelchair? She said, well, someday in heaven, I'm going to be walking around, you know, but this side of heaven, yeah, I'll be stuck in this wheelchair. So I said, wow, what an amazing. And then I asked her, I just feel so bad for you. You're such a beautiful girl and you're stuck in this wheelchair. She says, don't feel bad for me. I get great parking. You know, I get on the front of roller coasters. And that is Jill. She just has the upside that she sees in every letdown, the good and the bad. And she's not toxically positive. She's fully aware of the negativity in life. She just has disciplined her mind to be grateful. And that is the most attractive personality disposition on earth. And someone can go through something terrible and still see the bright side. Yeah. And that's what I fell in love with, this person. And that's who I strive to be like. And I live with my hero. And that's the God honest truth.
And in the video that everyone should watch, it's a lovely video. You do see her getting up and walking with a walker. So she's making some progress over that initial diagnosis.
Yeah, she tries to maintain what she has. So she's technically, from a medical perspective, an incomplete quadriplegic, which means her vertebrae was not severed, but it was severely bruised. So the left side of her body is a lot more paralyzed than the right side. Like she can't hold a cup with her left hand. But she can type with her right hand and push a space bar with her left hand. She's done all my bookings, and we're just a great ma-pa team, man. And she so believes in what I do for a living. That's the cool thing. And her favorite thing when I come back from a trip, because I'm in a new city every week, typically speaking to audiences around the country, she wants to know the off-stage conversations, like what kids came up to you and showed you their cutting scars or talked about how you helped them. And, and that I love sharing that stuff with her. So it's really a team.
Why don't we, let me just show you this little introductory video to get just a sense of what Brooks does.
They say, don't get upset. I love my job. I get to help teach students how to get someone to stop being mean. I teach students how to systematically remove mean people from their life legally without any violence. There are 3 reasons why people are mean to you. You can see on the emojis behind me that maybe they're trying to be funny and you're the butt of the joke. They're being mean to you because they want you to get upset. And always, when it comes to humor, someone has to be the butt of the joke. And when you're the butt of the joke, maybe you're not liking that. But the second reason why someone might be mean to you is because they're hurt by you. You did something or said something, and now they're angry with you. They have the desire for revenge. You realize you got a victim you're dealing with. Maybe the third reason why people are mean to you is because they like to control you. They love to see you suffer. They want to have psychological power over you, and they love doing that. But the same truth for all 3 is don't get upset. Be emotionally resilient. Everybody say resilience. If you're emotionally resilient, if you're mentally tough, if you're cognitively strong, if you have emotional intelligence to know why she's being mean and how to stop her, then she cannot mess with you.
Now we see in the video, we see some shots of you with different kids on stage with you, and you bring somebody up from the audience and you have them start a fight with you and show different ways to handle that fight. And they're very entertaining, very funny, and it's a great way to get through to the kids. But you make the point that you can't react and give them a win when somebody's coming after you. Just accept it. Don't let it build. And people are always amazed at me since I started covering Scientology back in 1999. I've had all these Scientologists come up to me and bull bait me. And Scientologists, if you're not aware of this, you probably are. They have this training routine called TR bull bait, where they have one Scientologist sitting in the chair and the other one is just saying the most horrendous things to them to try to get a reaction. And every time there's a reaction that flunk, you have to start again. And then you switch sides, and then you're the aggressor. And it's supposed to teach you how to handle people and how not to be handled. So I've managed to capture video of these Scientologists bull baiting me on camera for years, saying the most horrific things. And it's never bothered me, because when I hear them talking, I hear L. Ron Hubbard. I know it's not them who's saying this. But that central message of don't give them the win. Don't be upset about it. You know, you'll be better off not getting upset and fighting back. Try to make a friend. Uh-oh.
Oh, it's all right. I'll put it back.
Okay.
But yeah, keep
All right.
talking.
So, if you folks have a chance, go and take a look at those videos. Tons of fun. We do have some folks here. Let me say hello to some of the folks. Oh, there you are. I see you. Let me head over here to the comments because I haven't said hi to anyone yet tonight.
If you just remove me, I'll fix it. Sorry, man.
You want? Okay. All right. Very good. So let's see. Bridge 1872 is here. Hello to you. Tony Hoban. So excited for this one. Me too. John says hello, chat and mods. And Cat's Meow is here. Hello to you. Tony, let's see. Sarasota Jerry. Sorry about that. Nice to have you here. Clearwater Patriot. Hi from Florida. I would imagine specifically hi from Clearwater. And hi back at you. Elk of Antioch, hail Emperor Xenu and his meat bodies with big thetans attached, Brooks and Bunky. I've got a comment that you left starred here, Elk. So as soon as we have Brooks back, we'll talk about that. And Smoker says, "Sup, guys? Have a good rest of the night." All right, we'll try. We'll give it a shot. Clearwater Patriot says that Brooks' wife Jill is amazing. Cody Quinn is happy to catch a live. You got a good one here. Rochelle, hi, Mark and Brooks. All right. I think Brooks is still getting ready. Oh, look. Haggis Basher is here. Squabble Fufu says, "Thank you, Brooks, for having the strength to stand up for others." Are you back now?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, here we go.
We'll just use the old, nasty, crappy camera on my laptop, but
it'll do.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. When it's called exposure response prevention therapy, and that is when you expose yourself to the very thing that typically triggers you, it loses its power over time. So you're not as easily triggered, and people with OCD really benefit from this type of therapy. But that's essentially what I do on stage when I bring kids on stage, or like you mentioned, the way that they train their people. Or if you look at, let's say, the Martin Luther King sit-ins, they knew that in order for the African Americans to keep their cool when they were during the Jim Crow era, sitting in seats that they weren't supposed to, they would get ridiculed with racial slurs, and they'd even been pulled and dragged out and stuff like that. And it was critical that they did not retaliate, which is our natural impulse. Is if someone's mean to us, we want to be mean back to them. If they push us, we push them back twice as hard. And so Dr. Martin Luther King, he studied, of course, Gandhi, among others, great people in the past that did peaceful sit-ins. And they said, we have to expose ourselves to this type of aggression. That way they can learn not to get upset. And if you go all the way back to, let's say, I hope you don't mind this history, but 1863, there was this denomination of African Americans called the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And it's called the AIM denomination. In fact, 3 blocks north of the street that we saved, called Save the Garden, or maybe 4 or 5 blocks actually north, is called Mount Olive AIM Church with Pastor Williams. And he was a huge supporter, and he stood behind us back there with some of his congregation members. Phenomenal denomination. They had this publication called the Christian Reporter, and they publicized during the Civil War era, 1863, when emancipation was about to be signed. this old colloquialism that sounds like this: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. You know, that came from the AIM denomination. And the African Americans taught their children that in a sing-songy kind of way, because they knew their children would grow up without slavery, but not without racism. And so they wanted to create a psychological differentiation between physical harm and emotional harm. And this is so important to help people with. Now, if someone hits you with a stick, they hurt you. But if you're hurt by someone's words, you actually disturbed yourself, because their words don't have any type of matter to them. They can't wad it up, throw it at you, and give you a black eye. All they can do is hurt feelings. And those words have to be processed in your mind. And if you think those mean words are a big deal, you're going to have big feelings. But if you lower the importance of those words and they're a little deal, you're not going to have any feelings or very minor feelings. So people must learn to be emotionally intelligent, not to give those words power. That's why sticks and stones may break my bones, but there's no way your words are going to hurt me. And finally, this is what Albert Ellis taught in his ABC theory of emotions. He says, A, someone's mean to you. C, you have emotional consequence. So A is the aggression, C is the consequence. But in between A and C is the letter B, and that stands for your belief system. The aggression has to flow through your belief system before you have an emotional consequence emerge. And so I have learned this, I have taught this, and that's why when you see Ryan Cotton tell me that I have a bad character and that he doesn't know my heart, and I'm probably trying to exploit Black people to leverage them as a pawn to fight Scientology and basically character assassinate me in front of people from a place of power, in a place of authority. I don't give a flying flip about that, because I know the truth. I don't believe in my mind, oh no, he better not say that. He must not, he ought not, he should not, he better not. I just say, bring it, dude. It's actually good that you're doing this. It's fine, because it's doing two things. Number one, it's showing that you don't know me. Anyone who does know me knows that I'm a man of character and a man of faith. And, I don't use people like that. And number two, you're demonstrating that you actually think African Americans are ignorant enough to be manipulated by me, some white guy that has a grandiose vision. You're calling them dumb by blaming me for being manipulative. So, when your enemy's talking, you let them talk. If they're slandering your character, you let them slander your character, because it's actually telling more about them than it is about you. And I think all those skills came into play as you saw Save the Garden unfold.
Yeah, and I was actually so stunned to see the harsh reaction from both Ryan Cotton and Mike Menino, who I just wish they had spent the same amount of time that they did digging into attacks for you. Give that same amount of time to Miscavige, who's the person you really need to be concerned about. They seem to be just, we got to meet him and, he has great plans. But you dare to come before the council to offer an alternative, and man, they just wanted to slice you apart.
And you've learned how to have emotional resilience to that type of attack. And that's why people admire you and they say you're so strong. And it's beautiful, because you're not living for their approval. There's two vulnerabilities that we have. Number one is our tendency to want to perform well. It's kind of perfectionism. I hope I don't make a mistake. And the second thing is, I hope I perform well so that I might get approval from important people. And you have matured beyond that vulnerability. I mean, none of us arrive perfectly, right? I mean, we all have insecurities, but we've overcome it a lot. And it's something that you can learn, so that when you speak to power and they speak back to you in a condescending or negative way, and truth is on your side, and it's so powerful for people to see. And I hope that skill of resilience is learned, because we need more bold citizens to be totally fearless and speak truth to power.
Well, I think you could say that about most of the people who are probably following this stream, because the folks who have been taking on Scientology for quite some time, they've been up against a giant bully. I don't know if you're aware, but I was on the council for 4 years.
Know that.
Yeah.
Amazing. I was so amazed. And by the way, that says a lot about the citizens who believe that you are a force that can contend with the advancement of the Church of Scientology. We need someone like that on the dais so that there's a restraining force. So I think it's very powerful.
Right, and that was what got me onto the council to begin with back in 2020. It was my willingness to stand up and call out Scientology that actually made the difference. And there was enough of a pushback to get me booted out this past year and Ryan take over my seat. But when I was sitting in seat 2, I never would have treated anybody that way who came before the council. I saved that for Miscavige. I would have some, some strong words for Miscavige from the council, but to have that sensibility of how dare you come and speak to me, the Wizard of Oz, is remarkable to see. Any rate,
and I don't think he has this skill. I feel for Ryan, to be honest with you, and Menino is more refined. He's the type of guy that can be polite to anybody, build you up and then punch you in the face and then build you up again. He's really mastered that skill, and I admire him for it. I don't agree with him, his perspective or anything like that, but there's so much. If Ryan really wants to go farther, and I know a lot of people don't want him to, but if he did want to, he's going to have to learn to be emotionally intelligent in these areas. And he also needs to educate himself on the actual matter that's on the agenda item so he could speak with some level of authority and not be educated on the spot. I think those two things, if he can be a better student and he can learn to be less rigid in his belief system, you must not, ought not. And what I really wished for him, and I don't know if he'll ever allow me to speak into his life and have a conversation over coffee, I would love that, is I would say great leaders learn to work around obstacles. I was an obstacle in your life. And that's the only reason why Ryan was really upset with me. I was blocking his goal that he believed during his tenure that he could, take credit for the activation of downtown and negotiating a great deal with Miscavige or whatever. And we were a block of that goal. And so, really, I guess, emotionally mature people can say, all right, this block is not going anywhere. It's actually, I need to either work with them to accomplish my goal or work around them instead of attacking the person that's blocking my goal. Yeah. That's not the best way to go, but I digress.
Well, I did want to read this comment we got from Elk of Antioch, one of my regulars here, concerning what you were talking about with Jill. Elk says, speaking as a spinal cord injury survivor, I can verify you look on other people's struggles as greater than your own. Perhaps I shouldn't, but it helps cope. I
think you should. It was Helen Keller who said, I cried because I had no shoes until I met a man with no feet. This is healthy. This is healthy to realize just how grateful you are. In fact, it lays a foundation of gratitude. And so I really admire the Elk of Antioch. Thank you for sharing that.
V-Bombs has a question here for you, Brooks. Are you a born and bred Floridian? I'm sure you've been asked a bunch of times, so I apologize if this was answered.
Nope. My wife lived here since she was a little kid in Sarasota. But I was born in Kansas, raised in Texas, met my wife in Colorado, lived in San Diego for 9 years, moved to Detroit, Michigan, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and finally here. We've been here 8 years. I came when my oldest was 10, now he's 18. And I have a younger son as well who was 8 when he came here, now he's 16. So we're kind of new.
Well, 8 years in Florida, that you're almost a native. I spent 10 years in San Diego myself. What area of San Diego were you in?
We had a condo downtown by the ballpark, Petco Park.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Early 2000s. But we also lived in the Del Mar area, Rancho Santa Fe area, and we were young. We were in our 20s, so we bounced around to different places.
Wow. Yeah, and how did you decide on Clearwater?
My wife and I were living in Nashville about 9 years ago, and we just sold. We had a little sheep farm, a little hobby farm, and we raised chickens. And my wife's a homeschool mama, and we loved it. But my funds were running low. My speaking engagement was going down, and we hit a hard road in my business, and so we had to literally sell the farm. And we thought, where should we go? Well, let's go to Florida. All the old people go there, so we might as well get a jump on it. And so we decided to look up and down the West Coast because we like the West Coast better than the East Coast people. I don't know. West Coast people are way more chill. East Coast is a little rougher, kind of New Yorkers. And so we just drove all up and down the West Coast. And Safety Harbor was the last area that we went to, and we didn't find a place in Safety Harbor. We found a place right on the edge, which is in Clearwater proper, called Del Oro Heights or Del Oro Estates.
I know that area. Yeah. I have been there for Christmas caroling the last 2 years.
Okay. Well,
they've been nice enough to invite me to their little caroling sessions where we get onto golf carts and we go driving around the neighborhood and stop at different homes.
I'll join you this year. Yeah.
Well, that sounds great.
By the way, when I moved to Florida, that same month I moved, I had my first 1 million views of my videos. And then I would get 70 speaking engagements a day requests. And then fast forward to now, which is almost 500 million views. My videos translated in 20 languages. So it's like when we moved to Florida, poof, we were really blessed. So that was a good move for us.
Well, and things are booming for me too. Look at this. Does it matter to you? Not to me. Just gifted 5 Zenutv memberships.
Well, so put that towards stronger Wi-Fi. I recommend.
I hear you. I had my signal go out in the last stream I did yesterday, so I know what that's like. All right, so let's get into how this came to pass that you got involved with the Garden Street Project.
You bet. My wife is friends with a gal named Kelly Meyer, and they have a little sort of patriotic group where they study the Constitution together and learn how to be engaged citizens, and they teach some classes on it at our local church, and they go to conferences on it. And so over the last few years, she's become more and more attuned to civil engagement. So I have too. So I've went to some classes with her and learned from her. And we also started watching, documentaries about Scientology and learning about it just in the last 6 months. It was on her heart. And she says, I think we should investigate this. And I was like, okay. And so those two things combined, she had her ear to the rail with Kelly and realized that there was this street up for sale that the city was going to sell Scientology. Of course, you know this, that basically the Church of Scientology for the last year and a half has been trying to negotiate with the city council to vacate the street. And then usually when you vacate something, the city just gives it for free. They don't sell it. But in order to make money from it, the city council suggested, and it could have been a suggestion from Scientology, I don't know, but why don't you also declare it as surplus land, and then that would come with a price tag based on market value, which they evaluated to be $1.375 million. So it was really 2 agenda items, the vacation and the surplus with the sale. And it was all for sure going through. My wife came to me at late March, and she asked me, would you please help us stop the sale of the street? And I said, who do you think I am, sweetheart? You know what? I don't do this sort of thing. She says, well, we've asked other leaders and they don't want to do it. Leaders in the community. I was basically her last resort, from what I can tell. And I said, well, let me think about it. And I kind of thought about it and I investigated a little. And then when I was about to do it, I said, honey, are you sure you were asking me of this? And she nodded. And I said, all right, let's do this. And I knew I had 2 paths, Mark. You know this. You could either speak for 3 minutes during comment section. That's not going to do a darn thing.
Right.
Or I could provide an alternative proposal. Because when a city decides to declare something as surplus, especially if it's in the CRA territory, they have to make it available for the public to bid on it or provide an alternative proposal. So it was within our rights as citizens to actually give an alternative proposal. I said, honey, I think that's the direction we should go. I checked with Kelly Meyer. I called several other people that I was working with. And they said, that's a good idea. I said, well, what the heck do we propose? Because with all the setback restrictions, you can't do anything with this, right? I can't put it in a Chick-fil-A. I can't put it in some sort of building or structure. I mean, plus it's in the middle of the Mecca, right? This huge Scientology. So no developer is going to want it. So I really struggled. So I said, well, maybe I'll get some inspiration from the replays of previous city council meetings. And that's when I was starting to listen to March 17th meeting where you spoke at it, and I always appreciate when you speak at the lectern there. But then Miss Barbara Sori Love was there, and she says, this was the entrance to an old community called The Garden. It's one of 3 African-American communities, and it's the one that's been forgotten. You've got Clearwater Heights, you've got North Greenwood, but The Garden no one talks about. And this was the entrance to the neighborhood that goes for several miles up South Garden Avenue and then North Garden Avenue. She says, I would like to imagine this as a memorial for that community. And that's when it just resonated within me. I brought it to the team, and Kelly Meyer says, I also heard Barbara, and I also contacted Menino and other city council members, and I also think that this is what we should do. So when I got that confirmation, I thought, that's what we'll do. So it was April 2nd, I talked to Menino that evening because he was at an event that I was at. And I said, can you prove that you actually posted somewhere publicly that this was up for sale? And then he had a high-ranking Scientologist next to him who texted his wife, got a screenshot of the actual, public notice, and then showed it to me. And I said, okay, why are you hanging out with this Scientologist? That's interesting. But then, okay, I guess this is the Tampa Bay Times. You got to have a subscription. I said, it says my deadline's tomorrow at 5:00, April 3rd. He says, that's right. I said, you're going to have a proposal before then. And so I worked through the night to strategize, to write a proposal, to actually create renderings. I didn't sleep. And then finally, we got a hold of Barbara Sori Love because I couldn't do it without her. So it was really sort of a Hail Mary. And I think you mentioned that. It was just like, if she's willing to work with us, boy, that would be great. And let me tell you something about Barbara Sori Love. She's a woman of faith, and she's mystical in the sense she looks for signs, right? She's in her 70s, and she was earlier that day buying shoes. And she didn't want to spend $100 on shoes. She said, never in her life has she ever spent $100 on shoes, but she needed some sort of support for her feet. And the saleswoman said, don't think about the price, think about the support. And she says, okay, I'll buy them. And they were Brooks shoes. They were Brooks shoes, Brooks running shoes. Later that day, she gets a call from Brooks and Kelly. And I said, hey, I'm Brooks. And she drilled us with questions. And then she realized that, you know what, Brooke, I said, I want to support you. Our whole team wants to support you. And for her, that was stereo. That was 2 signals. That was creating a trajectory line. And she knew, I'm going to take a risk. And it has been such a venture of faith. And we have been literally running. She's been running with me. And so we put in a proposal 4:00 on that Thursday, I believe it was April 3rd. And it was an hour before close time. Albritton said he just got it. He didn't have time to study it. So he decided that night that he would make a motion to delay the vote to vacate and surplus the land to sell to Scientology. And that would provide us 5 weeks to improve our proposal. And that was so cool of him, by the way. I have the utmost respect for Albritton. And so we did. We said, thank you. And we got straight to work.
That was a nail biter. I remember, waiting and waiting for David to say, okay, let's give it some time. David is a good guy. I've seen you praise him. It was a real pleasure and an honor for me to be serving with David for the 4 years that I was on the council. I learned a lot from him. He's a good man. And it makes it a little more difficult for me to say some things that are critical of Ryan. I don't like to be critical of anyone, really.
Because Ryan is the son-in-law married to his daughter. For your viewers, they probably already know that, but that is difficult. And my wife would always tell me, do not take the bait. Do not react. I'm like, I'm not going to. She says, but it's really important that you don't because, David's there. And plus I learned from other people. I think it was you listening to one of your podcasts. I think you were saying, when someone criticizes the one, and maybe it was my land use attorney, I don't know, but he says, what happens is the other city council members feel obligated to defend their fellow council member. And so if you're really trying to win the hearts of all five, you have to not get upset when they're mean to you and treat them in a friendly disposition, respectfully, be professional, even though inside you're really struggling. And so we try to carry ourselves that way.
Well, I didn't say that, but it's a good piece of advice. I will say that when I was on the council, I remained positive and friendly with everyone, even when we disagreed on various issues. But there were, I can remember when we had a whole lineup of Scientologists come standing at the podium saying horrific things about me one after another. Nobody bothered to say, hey, Mark's not a bad guy. No, there was this volley of, he's a Nazi. It's like the KKK being invited to, okay.
I think this is a good time to say my thoughts real quick about each one. It'll only take 30 seconds. But when I think about Nina, I think that she cares about balance and beauty. She doesn't like the imbalance that Church of Scientology has created in the ecosystem of downtown. And so I appreciate that conviction. When I think about David Albritton, he agonizes over what's best for the city of Clearwater. He really does care about the people and making a good choice for his children and his children's children, as he's, I think, a fourth generation native. And then you look at Bruce Rector, and very soft-spoken, obviously, but a man of principle and conviction. And I think he is someone who I appreciate. And he said if this proposal was brought to his vote, he would vote for Save the Garden. And I appreciate him making that public. And next to him, you've got Menino, and he has mastered the art of kindness, in a sense. I mean, he can talk to anybody and put them at ease. That's a real skill that he's mastered, and I really admire that. And Ryan, if you think about it, he's given his life to service. I mean, being a paramedic or EMT or a firefighter guy, I mean, this is a guy who literally would come and save my children if we're in a situation and bring me back to life if I'm struggling. Like, how can you not appreciate that? That is no greater love as a man than this, that he'd lay down his life for a friend. So, and he comes from great stock. I think, and his family, his in-laws certainly are amazing. So I appreciate everybody, and I think that's worth saying. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had an uncle who was a firefighter. So when I was a kid, I would go down to the Oshkosh fire station downtown
in Wisconsin.
And Oshkosh, Wisconsin, mythical land of Oshkosh. And so I've always been a huge supporter of the firefighters. And when I was on the council, I was on the pension committee. So I made sure that firefighters and police always got a fair break when they were before the council. I agree with you. Being a firefighter is not easy. And it's a remarkable thing that anyone will risk their lives for others. So I have great respect for that as well. There was somebody who I think I missed it. Somebody gave a donation here, and I think it may have come with a question. Oh, there we go. Yes. Does it matter to you, not to me? Has a question. Brooks, in my opinion, Scientology is trying the same thing in LA with L. Ron Hubbard Way. They are trying to vacate it. Can we count you in as a speaker in LA?
I will definitely volunteer to consult that team. And I'll consider, I don't know that I would have standing in a state that I don't live in, but we could definitely tell our story of how we got over 1,000 petition signatures, and we rallied a real grassroots group of people who were wanting to see the city hold on to property. And so I'd love to share our story, but definitely serve as a consultant. brooksgibbs.com is my website. We have a contact page there. You can get in touch.
Yes, L. Ron Hubbard Way there is a 1 block long street in front of the old Cedars of Lebanon building. It's cobblestone street that they had named to Hubbard for Hubbard years ago, and now they're trying to take control of it entirely. They already have all the control they need of it. They would always be willing to, able to get rid of me, for instance, or anyone talking about Scientology on the street. So does it matter to you? Not for me. Thank you for the question and for the donation there. Let's see. Lily Scissorhands says, I'm going to pass on your videos to a friend of mine. She was being stalked in high school for about 3 weeks. The boy came to the prom and started yelling at her. He threatened to shoot the principal. Oh, my God.
Mm.
Oh, my Lord.
Homicide and suicide have one thing in common. They're the worst acts of violence that are committed by people with a victim mindset. Now, someone who kills himself or kills someone else are not the same morally, but they share the same psychology, which is victimization. And so I look at that type of story, and my heart actually, of course, goes out to those that are traumatized, the principal, the female there. But then I also have a heart for the guy who feels like he can't manage his emotions. Like he feels victimized somehow, and he has low frustration tolerance, and he has absolutism that now has been violated. This boundary invisible boundary that has been crossed, and he's all torn up inside. This is for lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of understanding that he's disturbing himself. And it goes back to Stoic philosophism. It says it's not what happens to you that disturbs you, but your interpretation of what happens to you that causes disturbance. And Epictetus said that, Stoic philosophy. So I hear stories like that, and I view both. People say, why don't you have a message for the bullies? Why don't you have a message for the aggressors? And I'd say because they actually don't view themselves as a bully. They don't view themselves as the aggressor. They view themselves as the victim.
Victim, yeah.
And it's a victim mentality that we have to cure in these children.
Yeah. The Journey 2020 says, I do not like how Ryan Cotton interrogated the Save the Garden group or made it seem like the African-American community isn't worthy of the space. Just a comment there. And this comment from the Bombs, Brooks, love that you look at the good of the people on the council.
Yeah, the original saying says there's enough good in the worst of us, enough bad in the best of us. It behooves all of us to have grace with the rest of us. I like that.
So Lily, I think also was wondering if you ever considered a run for office yourself. She says, I think he should run for mayor or city council member. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have Brooks for mayor and Mark for council member? Apparently, I can't be mayor under this, but I accept. I will serve under you.
Well, I've been asked that a lot. I appreciate it, but I think I'm probably better as a community organizer. The more I get involved in this sort of thing, I don't like the idea of not being able to talk with all council members about an agenda item. To me, that fires me up because I could help people think through stuff. I like to position us, our Reconnect Clearwater group, as a partner with the city. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether we'd be a lobby or we would just be a 501c3 as opposed to a 4. We're trying to seek counsel for that right now. But I think I'd be a lot more effective to sort of be a spokesperson for the people. One other thing that fires me up is having Reconnect Clearwater create a whole polling system. When agenda items that are important to the city, that are significant and consequential, come before the dais, that we actually have data where we have our volunteers throughout the city and get that raw data and be able to present that. So we don't have to guess what the people would think, but we'd actually, know. There's a lot of things we can do as a nonprofit organization that's in partnership with the city. I would prefer to stay that way. But let me ask you, Mark, you've been on that side. Where would I be more effective, like casting a vote or actually being a community organizer?
Well, I had actually been thinking about that before we were going to do the stream. You would be good on the council, but I think you are right that you'd be much stronger as somebody in the community who's really working to get something done, and then working with people on the council to achieve it. Like, I wish I had somebody like you that I could turn to or you could turn to me to say, we've got this project that we want you to champion, and I would be thrilled to do that. So you have such a full and active life as it is. I think you being able to whip this up overnight and accomplish what you did, that type of stuff doesn't really happen on the council. The city moves slowly.
I would hate that.
For you to take action and accomplish what you did was damn remarkable.
Thank you.
And I look forward. I look forward to seeing how this evolves, because I know, Scientology is going to be back trying to get that street again. They're not going to give up. I love the fact that they said, we're going to take some time and come back and show you all the safety concerns on the street. The safety concerns of the street that they say, oh, nobody really drives down. But right. When they do, tons of crashes. So they're going to, pull out all the stops, and, we have to remain cautious. I think it'd be great if Scientology actually came through and did what they've been promising to do since 2017. My feeling is you can't trust Miscavige.
Right.
And that was my message from the moment I ran for office originally. And when I got on the council, I made sure that, the city manager and the city attorney sat down with Mike Rinder, former head of the Office of Special Affairs, the late Mike Rinder, so he could explain to them exactly what it was like dealing with Miscavige. And our city attorney got it. The city manager that we had at that time lasted a year. And it's not like the current city manager doesn't understand. I think all the people who've been in office have had to deal with the really insanely difficult problem of having Scientology take over the downtown.
Yes, and
there's no easy solution.
No, they're convinced the walls are bugged. They have every communication FOIA. When we did a Freedom of Information Act, this was interesting, for all communication with the Church of Scientology over the last year regarding Garden Avenue, there was no communication. The only communication we were able to find was Tracy, I think her name was, who was a reporter
Tracy
from the
McManus. Yeah.
Phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And she was on it like a hound dog. And she was asking very tough questions. And because she CC'd, the city manager or the city council or, something like that, that's the only way we're able to extract information. So the Church of Scientology, now they FOIA everything. And I was told,
yeah.
But they,
I had to constantly be turning over every email, not just the work email, but anything that mentioned Scientology in the community here. I had to turn over that, everyone I was talking to, texts, all this kind of stuff.
But it's one way. They don't communicate via those paper trails to the city council. They have other modes of communicating and negotiating. So it's right. Not in the sunshine. It's definitely in the shade.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Funny that the dangerous cult would be secretive. Mm. So with the victory here so far, you are having a celebration on Thursday night. I'm looking forward to that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we think it's important to celebrate the victory and be able to bring the core team that really helped push it through the finish line. So on Thursday at Prelude, which is a sports bar owned by Tony, who also has the Captain Cigar Club as well as Nash Keys, the only free building, it seems, right there so far. It's at 580, I believe, Cleveland Street. So we're going to meet at 6 o'clock on Thursday. We invite everybody who's been following our story and wants to celebrate with us. Let's bless Tony and his wife. Let's buy their food. Let's have fun. There's going to be music. There's going to be laughter. There's going to be stories, some things that you've never heard about things we had to go through to get this far. And also, we're going to share plans of our pathway. You know, from the beginning, we never wanted the city to give up the street. If you go back to listen to my speeches, we objected to the, I want to say abdication, but the, what is it called?
Vacation?
No, the vacation of the street. So when we, who have a proposal, object to the vacation of the street, it means if they don't vacate it, our proposal is null and void. So it seems self-sabotaging. But we have always advocated for the city to hold on to the city street and for us to instead do a public-private partnership where we can install our memorial garden in honor of the African-American community that used to live, work, and play up and down that street. So, so we are phase one complete. The city still has the street. Now we're in phase two, and we're going to share our strategy to get that installation done on that street, as well as throughout the entire downtown, because we believe memorializing that which was lost is a healthy step forward for the city of Clearwater to reconnect with their downtown. And that's what we ultimately want. We want a new downtown, and we want to fill those streets with citizens.
Yeah. And Tony's done a great job of bringing that 500 block to life. And he's had a lot of hurdles to overcome with the city to accomplish that. But, you know, you guys are remarkable.
He is the spirit of a, what do you call it? My brain's not working this late, but like an immigrant who works hard and has no help, but just pulls himself up by the bootstraps and works blood, sweat, and tears and dollar bills, y'all. He has that spirit. I guess his dad was an immigrant. I was able to be the first one to read his memoir that he's publishing soon. And I got to sit through it. And it's basically all the wisdom that he's learned from his mother and father that he's passing down to his children. Guys, Tony is so special. And his wife is a pioneering woman, 2 babies on her hips, and she's serving tables, and they are new downtown. And if we don't support this precious couple, man, we are not good neighbors. So I'm fully committed to bring people to his establishments.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be there Thursday night, and I hope everyone else who's in the area comes and joins in as well. Let's see, we've got a comment here from Liz Gale. Author, artist, activist. She says, I'm really inspired by both of you two. All right. We will both take a bow. Thank you. So it is getting late. I don't want to keep you here longer than need be. But I really appreciate you coming by to talk about this. And I hope we talk again soon in the future. And I will see you Thursday, and look forward to see everything else that you accomplish here in the city, because I know this is just a start.
It's just a beginning. There's 2 other lots that we need to save. There's other things, like Miss Barbara Sori Love has other projects like the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church that she'd like to preserve. The 3C Society has a battle in front of them, and I'd like to assist them however I can. There's a lot to do in the city. But before we close, can I just ask you something, Mark?
Sure.
Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you care so much? We all love your personality, dude. Your sense of humor is so fun. And you have a great personality disposition, but there's a calling here, and I just want to better understand that.
Well, you know, it's just an interesting hobby of mine. I find it fascinating. It's this unique blend of science fiction, Hollywood, and cults, 3 things that I'm interested in. And I found myself, when I was living in LA, as I started to look into this, I became more and more interested in it in the like 98 or so. And I would stop into their buildings and say, what goes on in here? So they'd give me a tour, and I just act all innocent about it. I had a friend who I worked with, and we drove past Big Blue, the Cedars of Lebanon building they now own. And she said, what do you know about them? And I said, well, it's pretty much a money-making thing, and it's created by a science fiction writer. That's about all I know at that point. And, we hung out almost every day. And finally, like a year later, somebody said, she's a Scientologist. I went, what? That she never mentioned that to me. And then I looked back at all the things, all the clues that I'd missed over the past year. I went, oh yeah. So there was I had moved into a home where a Scientologist had lived right before me in the Los Feliz Hills. And she left without giving Scientology a forwarding address. So I kept getting all the celebrity magazines and all the reading all the ads for e-meters and all the articles by L. Ron Hubbard, and growing increasingly interested in it. So when I found out that my friend Susan was a Scientologist, I called her up and said, hey, how's your e-meter reading? And she went, what? What do you know? I said, I know you're a Scientologist. That's fine. And she said, would you come to the church? Would you? And I said, sure, I'll come to the church. Tomorrow? Would you come tomorrow? So she invited me down to the Celebrity Center, and I took the personality test, played with the e-meter, sat down with the head of the Celebrity Center and watched their introductory film. And it was not for me. And, I told her as much, and then she disconnected shortly after that. But it really, all of that was sparking my interest. And then I started meeting people who were former Scientologists and had escaped. And I started working with a great guy, Bob Minton, who was a retired international banker. And he started a group here in Clearwater called the Lisa McPherson Trust, named after the woman who died here, Scientologist who died after being held for 17 days in the Fort Harrison Hotel. So I came here at that point to work with that group, and got to meet Gabe Casares, who was the former mayor of Clearwater when Scientology snuck into town.
You met him.
They attacked him viciously, and he was a great guy. I got to know Ray Emmons, the retired police lieutenant who was in charge of investigating Scientology for 20 years. And the more people that I met, and the more stories that I captured on video of sharing their experiences, the more I was, fascinated and thought, well, here's a way I can help. So that's how it got started. And I just have, just kept doing it day after day. I just find it fascinating. That's all.
What is your end goal? What would you like to see in the future through your efforts and others?
Well, I think it's just great to educate people, because the internet has changed everything. I've seen a huge change from the 90s to now. Back in the 90s, no one would do a story on Scientology in the media because they had sued Time magazine, and that was a 10-year court battle that Time eventually won. But during that time, no other media would take them on. And then South Park came along. Tom Cruise jumped on the sofa, and South Park goofed on him and did that episode on Scientology at the end that said, "Sue me," and they weren't sued. And then the media said, "Hey, we can start talking about Scientology again." And then Anonymous came out in 2008, and people flooded to the streets, and so it's everything has changed so much over the years. And now you got all of these folks doing live streams everywhere across the planet. So there's a lot of great education out there. I'm happy that I've had a hand in sharing some of this information. there's a comment that was put up here from Liz Gale saying, knowing Mark and Tori were out there helped excuse me, helped give me the strength to leave Scientology. And I hope you know that you've helped empower so many people. And yeah, that is nice to know. I know we've had an impact. I hear from people all the time. Some people who I've captured on videotape, 20 some years ago, who have said, I'm out. I can't say anything, but I'm out. I have family who are still in, but I just want to thank you for, being there and doing that. And then Liz also adds here, I didn't understand what happened to Lisa McPherson when I was growing up in Scientology, but Mark fighting for her all these years always has touched me and reminded me that there are good men, not just David Miscavige's. Oh, there you go.
And so is this what drives you? Like, there's a part of you that's, I can tell, has empathy, great compassion for those who struggle. You can be smart, you can be witty, you can be factual, but behind all that is a real desire to rescue people from needlessly suffering and being taken advantage of. And that seems to be an injustice that drives you. So this is good work you're doing.
Absolutely. And nobody else was willing to talk about Scientology on the council when I ran for office. And it really is a major issue. It's not the only issue here in Clearwater, of course, but we've got this dangerous organization who is not a partner to the city as much as they pretend they want to be. If they were a partner, they would have worked with us years and years and years ago, instead of scaring everybody away, instead of buying up all the properties and leaving them empty for their grand plan. All right, well, you've had the buildings, you've had the plan, and that was 2017, and you still haven't done a damn thing, really. So I think it's important to call them out.
What do you think about all the local citizens that are attorneys that work for them, and they basically take money? They're not Scientologists, but they are enabling the organization to continue to expand its reach, and they are the power brokers in the community that are happy to receive the money, but they're almost like willfully ignorant of the damage that's done to those who are members. What do you have to say to them?
Well, that's pretty much the definition of attorney, isn't it? You take the money and you defend despicable people sometimes. Not all of them. Certainly, when Scientology came to town, they went looking for the best attorneys in Clearwater. They wound up with Johnson Pope. And the folks there are happy to do the job. They're not all bad people. My attorney, Dennis DeFlaming, who has defended me, who defended Bob Minton, and several of us at the Lisa McPherson Trust, he's one of the top defense attorneys in the state. And they came to him when they came to town and said, we want to hire you to sue Gabe Casares. And, Dennis talked about that on video for me, explaining how he was a young attorney who had just opened shop and he was desperate for money. And he said, let me think about it. And the next day he told him, no, I can't do this. And he wanted to speak at the last meeting before Scientology said, we're taking our ball and going home for now because we don't want to lose. But he was going to tell the story at the dais of how his best friend was having a wedding reception at the Fort Harrison Hotel. And he and his wife were invited to it. They showed up at the door, and they were not allowed into the Fort Harrison. They were barred from his friend's reception because he had defended people who, like me. And he just wanted to let the council know this is how petty and vindictive this organization is, do you want them to control the entire downtown? Personally, you mentioned, microphones and cameras being planted everywhere. Every auditing room at the Fort Harrison, wherever they're doing their auditing sessions now. I think they moved from the Fort Harrison over to the Flag Building, but all of these rooms where they do their auditing, those are mic'd up. Miscavige has a room he can go to and flick a switch and you just listen in live to any of the confessions that are going on. You think he's not going to micromanage every store in town that he controls? It's a scary prospect when we already know that they have booted people out of buildings as soon as they've purchased them in many instances. They have made it difficult for people to have businesses in these buildings. I find it hard to believe if Miscavige has his person recruiting businesses for all these buildings that he's not going to have full and complete control over them and not try to micromanage everything.
Well, you're very valuable in this space. Everyone has a role. They essentially, personalities are amazing because you can say and you can think so. You can say things and think about things so uniquely and present them to the world. And if we all work together, man, to be able to empower the people to be a counterforce to this expanding Church of Scientology, I think that's the only way we win. And then if we could educate and influence those that are in power, whether it's the commission or it's the city council, I think that's important. I do have one last question though, and it is my last question. You may not want to answer it. What's your view of God? Because I don't think you have a faith. I don't think. Are you an atheist? Do you believe in some sort of power or anything?
Well, I don't think I do. Although I respect folks who are religious. I remember as a little kid going to Sunday school and being, taught, Noah and the Ark and Jonah and the whale. And I remember thinking to myself, why do they want me to believe this? So I've always been skeptical. And it's not to say that I don't, I don't know. I don't know anything. I could be incredibly wrong. It just seems to me there's lots of folks who have lots of religions. Probably there's some sort of intersection with them all, but they can't all be right. You can't all say, well, this is the answer. That's the answer. I'm sure there's an answer that is satisfying to most people, and I'm content not really having that. Although there have been times when I've kind of wished that I did. I don't think I can force it though. I mean, I had a friend who was going through some real serious things, deeply religious person, and I felt guilty that I could not share in that as much as I loved her and still love her. So in wanting to have a connection, I suppose that's important. But on a day-to-day basis, I just don't. I'm just trying to get through life. I see deeply religious people supposedly in the government who are destroying people's lives. And it's like, really? You're okay. All right. I don't understand. I just think people should be good people. Yeah. That's what I shoot for.
Yeah, Yeah, and to closing, I would say, where's good come from? There's a hierarchical value system just by saying the word good. If there's good, then there is bad, and where's that come from? And so maybe a good challenge for all of us is to say, the God of good God. This is what Jesus said. Why do you call me good? Don't you know only God is good? You pray to that. And if you have 1% faith, exercise that faith. Maybe you have 10% faith. Exercise that faith and say, good God, show me more of your goodness and help me. And I cannot imagine life without depending on God. And I'm not an evangelist or anything like that, but I think from my teachings, all the wisdom that I have, the energy that I have, the sense of direction that I have, the clarity of thought that I have, the willingness to forgive that I have, the team that I attract, all that goodness is because I'm wide open to the good God that pours out goodness to me. I find that in Christ. But I would, if you have 1% faith, Mark, let me just challenge you and your listeners, start praying to that good God and say, good God, start pursuing me and show me more of your goodness. Like Cheerios on a trail, like in that little Boo, that baby in Monsters, Inc., how there was a trail of Cheerios. From goodness to goodness, let me find you as I follow your will for me. So that's my hope and prayer for you, Mark. Fist bump. I so appreciate our time together. I really admire you, man. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And I will say also that even though I'm not praying to anyone, I am trying to live that same life of being good, being forgiving, thinking, the best of people, even my enemies. So I always say, the Scientologists who are attacking me, that's not them. I don't, there's only one Scientologist I've ever met in my life who I disliked, and that was a guy who was just a thug who was punching people. But by and large, every Scientologist I've met has been a good person. So that's just the way I try to live life.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on here. I'm sure there were tons of questions that people had, but I don't want to take up any more of your time. It was an absolute delight to chat with you. And think of what could happen if somebody like me was on the council again in a year and was connected with somebody like you who actually could get things done in the community.
We have to work together. It sounds like a good plan.
All right. Okay, well, and I'll see you on Thursday night. I hope everyone else who's in the area comes by for that as well.
Thank you, guys. Thursday, 6:00 at 580 Cleveland Street, and that is a place called Prelude Sports Bar, and we'll see Tony and his wife. Let's really support them. Thank you, man.
All right, thank you. And everybody who's been tuning in, I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you again probably tomorrow night. Bye.
What are your crimes, Mark? Yes, what are your crimes, Mark? Your crimes are hidden, they should be seen. Spin all out, Mark, and just come clean.